YouTube is going to load. Okay, everything is there. We are live. Hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, just getting my first morning cardio session done. So again, with some of this, I really need to double dip. On Facebook and YouTube. It's always good. Get as much outreach as possible here. So again, I'm going to go ahead and do both. Hopefully I set this to public on the Facebook. I'm 90% sure I did. So we'll see if we get morning regulars in. They should be watching for it because this is a little later than I usually come in. So hopefully this is kicking into some people's feeds. Right there we go. There's the first viewer. Hopefully we get likes. So yeah, guys, up at it early. I want to try to get a bare minimum of 3 hours in here this morning. I want to get our minimum of 3 hours. And then maybe I'll do some sled and other stuff later. But yeah, I want to go pretty hard here. I need to get the total calorie burn and energy turnover up while doing my fasted windows in the morning. Kind of the key to making this work with what I'm doing. But hopefully we get people in here shortly. And in the meantime, while I'm waiting, I can always do a little bit of other posting. That's the benefit to all this, right? We can cross post and work other projects while I'm chatting with you guys. Something I can't always do on the phone either, right? Something we can't always do when we're on the phone. So yeah. But again, not fully awake yet. I've had 1 cup of coffee. I don't want to drink too much while I'm on the bike because I don't want to have to take bathroom breaks. All right, and we're used to doing 1 cup of coffee and then taking a walk all the time. So no reason we can't do the same thing while we're doing this here. No reason we literally can't just do the same thing. Which is what I'm going to do. I'm hopefully going to do. Let's come back over if we see if we have any comments yet. We have a couple of viewers trickling in, no real comments. We'll give them a minute. I don't know what's going to happen with Facebook this early. I used to have an international audience on Facebook, but it seems like all of my engagements lately are over 80% US, which is good because that's my preferred client for outreach. But yeah, I can definitely tell now that I'm doing this in the morning versus the walk. The bike cardio is definitely more difficult than my brisk walking, the setting I have it on. Because I never do the bike fresh, so I don't know. So I can definitely tell now this is more intense. Definitely more intense than my walking is, so that's interesting. It's probably a better use for me to do an hour on this bike based on what I'm feeling in my legs versus the walking. This is probably superior. It's definitely more difficult, right? Which is, of course, what we want. So yeah. But it's also not getting, I don't know if my regulars are coming in. Do they take this long normally? I think they do anyways on the walks a lot of times. It takes people a little bit to get in here. It's not an instantaneous thing at all. Let's see if I can stick this one out till 6 a.m. The walks are longer because they're also easier, and I'm realizing that doing this now. There's a reason on the bike I almost never go over an hour. But I've done walks over 2 hours. Again, the intensity level I have it set at. All right, cool. I'm hoping it will be nice and productive then. Once we get actually people in here. But I have to do this anyway because I get bored with the cardio. So, me doing it this way, eventually we'll get people in and then we'll get topics and conversations going here. See how the morning stuff. This one guy literally wrote that about all the health negatives of polyunsaturated fats. Like, what strange comments. Like, imagine being so delusional and ignorant of nutrition that you think that polyunsaturated fats are bad. And I at least can understand for the people who aren't reading the science of why they might be worried about seed oils. You know, okay, I can understand where they're coming from because they haven't read the research and they believe comment. But to say polyunsaturated fats as a whole do not promote amazing health benefits is completely scientifically illiterate, right? Like, you can't hold that position and be looking at actual data or research, just such a strange position to take, right? And it seems to come exclusively from the keto camp. It's not that, I think it's the case of, I don't think these people who follow it discovered, there must be some problems with polyunsaturated fats, and then they became keto. I think it's because they're obsessed with keto and eating all the animal fat first. And they decided that was a way, so then they had to demonize polyunsaturated fats. Right? I think that's the direction they come from, because there's no evidence. There's not actual scientific evidence to support their idea. So it came from an ideology first, their religion of we must eat all meat and butter. And I'm saying don't keto people who lean in that direction, not carnivore, because this predates the carnivore. I think that's definitely the case of what we're seeing with stuff like that. But then the problem is, and even if they look at the evidence of their own diet, polyunsaturated fat-based keto diets have better blood work every time in the lab. And that's been directly studied, So it's a very, very strange position for people to take. Like, I struggle to get my head around it. That almost needs to be a screenshot, right? But they try to use scientific terms, but it's like, where's your evidence? It's like, yeah, do you want to eat all those polyunsaturated fats so you can support inflammation? Okay, no evidence of that. And get heart disease in your end. Do you know how they oxidize like crazy, right? There's nothing like oxidized cell membranes and arterial walls. Wake up, people, right? It's conspiracy theorists. The strength and size directly correlated for natural lifters, yes. And here's what to think about. Do natural lifters have any side enhancement? Right? I'm going to say that size and strength have a stronger correlation with no drugs or PEDs or bodybuilding and stuff, like various drugs. You're going to probably have a slightly better correlation, right? Why? Your ratio to fast twitch to more intermediate twitch hypertrophy is going to be higher for a long-term natural lifter. What has more strength potential? Your faster twitch fibers have a little more. When no drugs are in the mix, you within a couple of years reach a point where almost all your hypertrophy is your fastest twitch sets of fibers, right? Is that not true, right? Anabolics allow all the muscle fibers to start growing again, including the intermediate. So when we start talking really advanced naturals, like 8, 9, 10 years of training versus, say, someone enhanced, I think you're going to see an even stronger correlation. If I had to postulate. Now, when it comes to stuff like the side enhancement, because there's so much oil and stuff in the arms and shoulders and everything of most competitive bodybuilders, fake muscle is not even muscle, then, that's going to change those correlations even more, right? Because let's keep in mind, we're at a point where I'm seeing 170-pound men's physique guys and fitness influencers with visible side enhancement. Particularly the delts, the biceps sometimes, but usually we see the delts a lot. So even then, that's going to be a problem. just in terms of the appearance of size relative to strength. How do you like that answer? Yeah, interesting how much harder this is on my legs versus my walking. I'm noticing that because again, I always walk in the morning first like this. So I need to get stronger no matter what else is a natural lifter, even if intermediate advanced, to keep gaining size. Oh, more so. More so. Yeah. As a natural lifter, all of your once you've been training, I'm going to say more than maybe 6 months, pretty much all your muscles going to come from. Like strength and size are going to be completely correlated from there. Like in other words, all of your strength gains are going to be a direct product of hypertrophy. You're gonna see very, very little neural gains. Right? But again, when we say strength, here's a different way to put it. How about progressive overload? Because strength is measured as a 1 rep max. And you don't have to necessarily test your 1 rep maxes for your 1 rep max to go up. So, if how do I put this? If I'm saying strength instead of progressive overload, it's going to give the impression that you could just come in and do nothing but heavy singles and you would grow as fast as possible because that's going to technically produce the most strength. So what we really should say is progressive overload. If you are not seeing progressive overload over time as a natural lifter, you're not gaining muscle. Period. Just not significant amounts. Now, keep in mind, it's not going to be linear, meaning some stuff is going to go so slow because you're a natural lifter that's just how slow the muscle grows. You're going to reach a point where, especially a smaller lift, and I hate to use that example because we're just not moving that much weight. You're never going to concentration curl a heavy weight as a drug-free guy. All right. So for you to add 5 pounds to the dumbbell could literally take 2 years. But generally, yeah, obviously your bigger exercises, you should be, able to occasionally add weight to them. You should generally be seeing a rep increase and then weight increases that you're able. And if that's not present, then no, you're not. You're probably not gaining muscle. But we see that over time, You see that with really jacked natties who have been training a long time, they're crazy strong. Particularly once they really put those years in. Start talking 10 years. They're always strong. There's like no exceptions if they're actually big. But keep in mind, leanness can give the illusion of size. Proportion can give the illusion of size. When you're on a camera. It's kind of like, people will say stuff like, well, if size equals strength, then why are bodybuilders so much bigger than X or Y? And you see Brian Shaw next to Jay Cutler and those other guys at that time. And it's like, oh, they look like children next to him. Never mind. So the neurodrive only comes from the beginning. No, that's not true. How do I put it? All right. No, because you can change your neural drive by changing to more neural drive during the training. But let me explain. So again, we get a better context. Assuming you're not changing rep ranges or doing heavy singles, right? You're not maxing out. Let's say that for 5 years of training, starting from the early stages, you do, I don't know, everything in that 5 to 8 rep range, right? or 5 to 10 rep range. Okay, and you always have big lifts closer to 5 or 6 somewhere in the mix. And you're not going lower rep and heavier than that or doing maxes. Your neural drive is going to cap out relatively quick, most of it, right? You're not adding new exercises in. That's going to be the key. You're not dropping rep ranges down significantly or adding new exercises. Then the neural drive is going to cap fairly fast. Now, can you make changes in nervous system and all of that? Sure, change exercises. Now you have a relearning curve for your nervous system. But if your bench press, for example, this is a perfect example, bench press or your incline bench, you keep them in the 5 to 10 rep range your entire life, and you train those lifts every week. Yeah, it's going to be all hypertrophy past a certain point. Makes sense? Because you're not dramatically lowering the reps to improve neural drive with a really heavy weight, and you're not changing those two exercises. So you're not getting a novel training response you're having to relearn. Then yeah, it's pretty much hypertrophy there. Can rotating exercises, barring the big three on a full body split, still be effective? How do I put this? I don't like to give concrete answers to that because then people can take it to the extreme. It's like, if we use some common sense, feed me. Instead of Jason Blaha gave a rule and it always applies and I can go as extreme and crazy as I want and it will still work. That makes sense. Let's not do that. For some reason, people really, idiotic moronic people love to do that. It's actually not a sign of high intelligence at all. When people find a way to create a way to break your rule. Yeah, they'll still be effective as long as there is a general upward trend in those movements. So, example, feed me. Here's a perfect example. Let's say you change the type of row. Let's say you do full body 3 days a week, but you change the row each workout. But by the time you get back around to that same row again, you still try to progress on it. It'll still work, right? So let's say, and I'm not telling you to do this, I'm just giving you an example. Let's say Monday you always do barbell rows. Wednesday you do a pen leg row, and Friday you do a one-arm dumbbell row. And you hit each one of those only once a week and you rotate them. It'll work just fine. But again, what we're looking for is progressive overload on those individual lifts, right? On that individual exercise. So let's say you have another exercise you hit once every week or every 2 weeks, even through the rotation. So let's say at minimum you hit it every 2 weeks. Well, you get 25 exposures a year to that exercise. That will still work. Especially if you're taking the sets to failure or close to failure, because you're going to get a training response to the ladder, but you're not going to completely detrain the movement pattern. So that'll be okay because you're still maintaining that skill. That is the thing you have to remember with compound movements. There's always going to be a skill component. Hey, feed me, did you click like, by the way? I don't have any likes. I don't have a single like in this stream so far. So there you go. Thank you. So that's a consideration. I like to do a top set on squat, bench, deadlift, and then rotate stuff. I think that would still be effective, and here's why. You're having a very consistent motor unit learning for your biggest movements. So that works, and then you can change secondary stuff. I mean, I used to do a lot of the ladder, and I'm probably going to start doing more of that, where maybe I keep a dip and a pull-up end, but I can rotate all my other stuff. You know, the incline work, the shoulder work later, the different rows. And if you accessories behind it, you explain it very well. I'm like, okay, good. All right. You know. Now we could argue with the single joint, doesn't matter, but we could also argue that all those curls really work for me. That's the thing that frustrates me. And I've had people say, well, I did my curls just fine. You know, I had someone argue, well, you didn't progressively overload your curls. I'm like, I did. I tried. I have really long arms and I'm not curling way back like people do to cheat it up. And my arms way out in front of me. What do you mean, guys? I put 20 pounds on those work sets over a couple of years. Right? I think people forget that I was doing 65 pounds for street curls with the barbell. And it's like 85. It's like, yeah, but guys, I got pretty long arms. If I did them from the side, people would understand how far I'm swinging out on those. I'm not cheating. I did that with one of my, someone I do consultations with. He got me in the gym one day. And he's like, well, look how strong I'm. Why are my arms even smaller than yours? And I'm really strong at these curls. And he's doing a cheat curl at the barbell, like to where using the strict curl type approach to where they remove bicep, to where he pulled it all the way into his torso and then up. And I'm like, do them like I do them. And then he couldn't do he couldn't do the weight even close to anymore. So, but I mean, case in point, look how many curls I did. And I did progress on them. My dumbbell weight over time went up like 12 pounds for my heaviest high rep sets on the incline curls per dumbbell. My barbell curls went up 20 pounds, so they did go up. And yet my biceps I don't think they're any bigger than those older pictures where I was doing none. So I think I just need to hammer the hammer curls once that shoulder heals. But the thing is, it's like I was chatting with another guy now, a friend of mine online who's a lifter of yesterday. And he said, he says, you have to know your arms aren't going to grow while you're cutting. I'm like, but that's irrelevant. I still have to deal with it. He did agree with the shoulder thing and the bicep. He actually said that. I think that actually is very likely. But, again, we're talking about a fairly strong lifter who deadlifts over 600 pounds. So he's not just a jerk off. But he had said, yeah, you could just do for the rest of this cut all hammer and pronated work and see what happens. I'm like, if my shoulder range of motion improves, we found the culprit. All right. Then a few accessory adjustments, yeah. So, that would be the way to approach it. So if I do zero supine work for a little bit, and my shoulder range of motion returns, we found the culprit. Luke says, do you have any opinions on minimum age for weight exercise? Is it just weighted or is it avoiding maxes or failures? There's a lot of opinions about weightlifting. Hey, Luke, are people still arguing that in 2025? I thought that was a dead topic. I thought the whole stunting growth we quit saying that years ago. Who's saying it? Can you cite like an official source? Or is it your friend's mom? Would be the question. That's not a topic, right? Like that's not a topic that I'm aware that actual real people discuss. Like this is my whatever, my sister's mom or whatever, my aunt told me that. Like this isn't a discussion in lifting circles. That's my opinion on it. This is not a real topic. This is old wives' tale. I don't know any doctors telling people not to lift. Could you give me some names? I'll go call them out by name. So send me links. If you see a doctor somewhere telling people not to lift, I'm going to call them out and light their ass up all over the internet. They need to be called out and they need to have their license removed. They need to have their medical license revoked. Like straight up, they do not need to be a practicing doctor. All right, so they need to be called out, just like I called out the carnivores. So the minimum age, Tanner stage 4. Can they control their body eccentrically, or did they collapse when they drop down? So eccentric control is critical, number one. Number two, they need to show a direct interest. So what you're looking at is, do they actually want to? Or are you trying to talk your kids into it or force them? That's going to be a problem. You're going to destroy their desire to do fitness the rest of their life. Just like I will never garden the rest of my life because of my dad. That's it. I burn a garden to the ground before I prune it. So, because it was something I was made to do as a chore. So I hate flowers pretty much, growing in gardens, just burn them. So that being said, that's how you put your children off for weightlifting. Now, if they show an interest, sure, avoid failure. If they haven't hit puberty, avoid maxes and don't go to failure. My kid is asking me to take him to the gym and telling him when he can do all his bodyweight exercise perfect form. I'll think about it. I think that's fair. Can he control the bodyweight squat? Ask to grasp with perfect form without dropping. You're looking for eccentric control. Luke says, that sounds to me like what I'm saying. When someone's buff, they stop working out, all their muscle turns to fat. What alchemy, right? There's no biological mechanism by which that occurs. What they mean is they maintain their same food intake and quit working out, so they just run a calorie surplus. Eccentric control, yeah, exactly. No, they got fat because they overate. Been watching your videos on the food pyramid, very informative. It's only normal for everyone to follow it. Right, no one followed it. I mean, we're talking about Americans here. See my face. The government said to do something, and Americans all followed suit. Okay. All right, that's a hell of a theory. Let us be clear. The government gave guidelines to Americans, and the people in this delusional world think that Americans followed it. The government. I don't think people understand how inherently American culture is anti-government. There are large segments of the population who would do the opposite just because the government said to stop. So if the government gave out mandates saying, do not drink any alcohol, we think it's a horrible idea, and they publicized it. There are Americans who would go get drunk as a response in large numbers. Purely because the government gave a guideline and they're going to say, I'm not going to let them tell me what to do. So there's your context for the food pyramid. Nobody really followed it. The people who follow it are all in countries where they follow the food guideline. They're all thin. They all have low rates of diabetes and cardiovascular disease, like East Asia. Go look at a lot of those more traditional diets going back a little bit. They're pretty much the food pyramid, right? Pretty dang close. But who's opposed to it? The keto people. So you have to go back and understand why these are topics. People do not understand how massive the low carb demographic is and how much it influences the fitness world, up to and including, let's demonize the food pyramid because it's carbohydrates. That's what people need to grasp. The primary objection has been the focus on carbohydrates because, rice and potatoes make people fat, but they're only seeing it as bread. But the problem is, I think you guys will know what the problem is real quick. Do most breads fall under the food pyramid? And I think that's a take home that people miss. There's butter, refined sugars, and oils oftentimes added to bread. How much bread can you eat before you're now in violation of the food pyramid? Not a lot. You know, it's going to have to be the healthiest bread you can come up with, really. Um, you know, but again, what do I know? All right. Well, that's interesting. How much of a sweat I'm already breaking. Despite being in the fan and the AC, yeah, this bike definitely burns more calories. I'm definitely burning through more energy than the morning walks, much as I like them. This lets me double stream, and it's probably better. And I'm not burning through shoes. Man, I'm starting to see wear and tear on those work boots big time. All those hours. Surprised. Okay. But yeah, the whole thing with the food pyramid, the entire low carb brigade is who has the issue with it, mainly because they're telling you to eat rice, pretty much. Right? Which a lot of people don't like. How dare they tell you to eat rice? Don't you know it raises insulin, it turns into sugar. The last thing you want is sugar. Coach, is the weather bad today? No, weather's fine. I'm just realizing it's so much easier for me to come and do this, right? I can still double stream. Technically, I'm getting some decent views on those morning walks, and they're not making. If they don't get a super chat, they're not even worth doing. That's how bad the ads are. So, and plus, I'm beating up shoes. I've got to go through the trouble of walking in the morning, um, and it's going to get colder eventually. This is going to become more common. So, I'm going to do more and more of the biking. Plus, I'm getting more outdoor with the sled work and other stuff that I'm just going to do more and more on the bike peppermint, mainly because it lets me double stream. And that's the main thing. Like, if I'm going to be fair, in order for me to reach the same money on a walk that I reach on the bike, I've got to get 3 times as many views, and we're not getting 3 times as many views. My walking live streams aren't getting 1,000 views. They're not getting 1,200 views. So I'm missing out double dipping just to go walk. I'm not going to bring back current events. That is a non-fitness. No, that is tech, because it's still part of this channel. We're not doing it. I have no interest in doing it. I don't care. I don't want to do it. It doesn't meet the image I want. It doesn't meet the life I want to live. It's not being true to myself or my goals or my business goals. And it's quite frankly soul draining. Like, to stand here and to trash talk other people and pick fights and to badmouth other people is soul destroying. Right? To just make whole videos doing that it's not good for my mindset. It's not good for me mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, even if it pays a little bit of money. And I've got to question the people who really enjoy it. I got to ask you, man, what are you really doing with your life? And I mean, I know people like to chime in, but you got to then flip that on them. For me, saying, look, it's soul destroying for me to make it. Is it soul destroying for you to engage the content? Does it make you a good person, or does it just kind of make you a worse human being to be entertained by it? You know, we can call out scams and ideas without, getting into any of that nonsense. Plus, I really hate YouTube fitness. I have to watch YouTube fitness to do it. That alone is soul destroying. I feel like I will literally lose training knowledge by watching these people. Coach, you're right with that stuff. I had to do a lot. Yeah, a lot of growing up these last years. Yep. Yep. Yeah. So, yeah. And reassess whether this is stuff I should be taking pleasure in. There we go. And I think that's the way to look at it, Peppermint. We've got to look at stuff like that and say, what does it say about us as a person and our mindset if we're taking pleasure from that type of content in general? You know, I think that's a serious topic. And that's still a fitness topic. We're talking about our mental fitness. That applies to all your training, It, yeah, it's a point where it just gets soul destroying. I really like your evolution and who you've become. And your fitness is really impressive. I'm just not sure I can move on. Wow. Wow. You're a terrible, terrible person, dude. Get out of here. What a horrible human being to even facilitate that sort of lie and to, say something horrible like that. Hey, you're a terrible person. All right. All right. So this is I disengaged with the YouTube fitness thing because it was so bitchy. Good thing to keep things on track. 2 thumbs up. Peppermint nastier. Exactly. That's the sort of people we were talking about the other day, involved in those sort of things of just perpetuating a lie to make someone look like a horrible person so they can justify swatting them and stalking them. Literally creating a fabricated lie. You know, it's completely detached from the reality of the situation. Right? See, and I could give an emotional response there, but I'm not. I could give a whole response to that. Of, how do you think I feel about the situation? Because then I would go pop Alex Rosen or somebody, and we don't need to do that. So, um, you know, that's not worth it. Move on. All right. So, you know, back to real fitness. But yeah, Luke, the whole YouTube fitness thing, man. I used to watch Marcus off a bit, but YouTube fitness isn't my favorite place either. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's not worth it, man. We just move on from it. That's a case where one day the truth will out. Everyone wants to know the truth and what is lies. Yeah. No, I don't think anyone really. You don't. No one knows the truth of that backstory but me and a couple of people. That particular topic, by the way. But that's pretty far in the past. All right. Um, like you guys couldn't possibly know the whole story because you weren't there. Omar was good, but then he showed his true colors. Well, what did he do on that, beat me? I'm not sure what he did specifically. He probably sold out on some stuff, I'm sure. In the end, that's what happens with fitness people. They keep selling out. Whereas in me, man, these days I'm looking at what I'm doing and I'm going back to a lot of my roots aren't really of saying, I think I got a lot of stuff really right in the past that I felt like I didn't. But then I look back and go, man, I was pretty jacked and strong and everything. I just could have been leaner. Man, some of your current events were interesting, but I mostly watched stuff like your trend breakdown video from that time period, good information. They unmonetized that video later. It actually did really good, and they pulled the ads from it. They turned them off for that video. Nothing, you're a good person, a good name has been Blaha. I appreciate that, Peppermint. Said he didn't want to associate with me, and it was a video stream of 4 people years ago. Gotcha. Well, Omar might have honestly believed a lot of the nonsense, though, so there could be that. I'm not going to necessarily hold that against Omar. I mean, if he believed a lot of nonsense about me, then I get it. And he definitely didn't want to deal with trolling. What's up, Mustafa? How you doing, man? We're double streaming here. Oh, Michael, I didn't even catch that. Hey, Coach, absolutely no offense intended here, but I wonder if there might be times when you overly demonize certain foods just because they don't fit with your build or aren't seen as healthy or whole. Do you think you? No, I don't think I unfairly demonize anything. To be honest, I really don't think I do. I mean, we've got pretty good data. So, for example, refined sugars, butter, those would be foods I definitely demonize. But that's an evidence-supported position. I mean, did you see that even most recent meta-analysis? Like, why would you touch refined sugars after seeing that meta-analysis? Is it me demonizing it? Or is it literally 12 scientists demonizing it? I think the flexible dieting crowd is so caught up in our culture of eating garbage that they can't let go. But there's a lot of things I'm not demonizing. I don't demonize red meat. I would just point out eating the saturated fat in excess is a problem. But I don't demonize red meat, for example. I don't demonize actual real foods. I'm literally only demonizing processed junk. Right? If you go through and really look, everything that I demonize almost always has added sugar, added refined sugars, butter, or is like a processed red meat. Is that a fair statement? You think like 12 hard sets is like 90%? I don't think we can pin down a percentage, Mustafa. But let's put it in that range. It's probably in the 90 to 100% range, somewhere in that mix. So no, Michael, in that context, I feel like my position of being against those things is very evidence supported, especially when you have a meta-analysis that shows consuming them in moderation still increases cancer and diabetes risk. Keep in mind, I've been holding this position, and that meta-analysis hit last month and said that. And it was a very large meta-analysis. And if you look at that, it's basically telling you refined sugar and, say, processed red meats like bacon, for example, even eaten in very small amounts, still cause measurable harm. So how am I demonizing anything? I don't feel that I am. I am saying, look, this is what the evidence shows. In other words, stop eating junk food, guys. It's not good for you. And I feel like the other position is extreme. Of people saying, no, we can work stuff in, all stuff in moderation. But that's coming from your food addiction. That's the food addiction mind from a culture endorsing it, telling you that, and it's not based on evidence. Luke said, I did a pretty extensive look through the literature for red meat cardiovascular. It was pretty conflicting, had an interesting take. Obviously, processed red meat was clearly the worst. Luke, and that's very, very consistent. The problem is when the studies mix the two together. But interesting, seems to say you can say 30 pieces of bacon in one city per month is better than. I don't know about that, Luke. That'd be hard to quantify, but you know. But even then, so instead of saying red meat, the red meat isn't conflicting. Let's take the processed stuff out, and let's assume red meat, they mean cuts of steak or ground beef or ground lamb or whatever, right? Let's assume that's what we mean by red meat. Now we can go over to a quantitative issue. The amount of saturated fat you consume from them is relevant. So now it's in moderation, there's no harm on those because it's thresholds and total intakes of saturated fat. The problem is with the refined meats, there's usually extremely high in saturated fat plus additional carcinogens added. Like there's all those nitrates and stuff. So that's the double whammy. You know, you're looking at multiple pathways, no longer just the saturated fat. We're like, well, now there's actual carcinogens added, all the curing and preservatives in there is the problem. You know? But so, we look at those meta-analysis and then it's like, how does anyone spin that as who funded the studies? Like, so if you take a meta-analysis like that and someone throws that conspiracy theory, you're like, so you're telling me the government and elite people who want to hurt you don't want you to drink soda and eat bacon? Right? Yeah, but Luke, how you prepare the meat and what people cook it in is also the issue. So we come over to, it's like I'll say stuff with rice and people say, well, it depends on what you cook it with. And it's like, but if we're back over to not eating the garbage, why, you see the problem? Well, what if they add tons of butter? But I've already told you you shouldn't eat butter. You probably shouldn't have it in your house. You shouldn't cook with it. It's garbage. It's horrible for you. So the issue is still not rice. It's butter. Also, all that. Yeah, bacon's going to be loaded with nitrates. So again, we take an evidence-based approach. The newest meta-analysis is saying drinking sugary drinks, or as you Brits call them, "Oh, fizzy drinks, mate." I never heard that term until I moved to the UK in my life. A fizzy drink. I like, what the fuck are you talking about? What? Because I'm like in my 30s and I've never heard this term. I just think it's hilarious. It's like, because I didn't hear this until I was well into adulthood in a foreign country, Our bodies don't need that much steak protein. We cannot absorb. What? I mean, yeah, you can actually. You can absorb it. Our bodies don't like to waste animal proteins. We're pretty efficient at absorbing them. They may turn into carbohydrate, but we're going to absorb them. What's it called on top? All right. Kool-Aid's a brand. Kool-Aid is a company. So, if they don't sell, that company doesn't exist in your country, obviously. Right? Yeah, Kool-Aid's a company, dude. It's a major company, but it's a company. Right. So. I appreciate the like, Carol. We're also on Facebook. Never heard of Kool-Aid until the memes came along. Oh, yeah, no, it's a company. They make powdered drinks that kids drink growing up here. My whole generation, it was part of our childhood too. The Kool-Aid man in the picture. Right. We had kids commercials with him busting through walls on the television. Or do you guys call it? Or the telly, mate. It's not my field, but for fun, I did a private review of literature with a cardiologist friend's input on the subject of white meat, red meat, processed meat, cardiovascular, and intake frequencies. We send you a Facebook sometimes. Yeah, I mean, we can check it out, Luke. Send it to me on Facebook. I go hard on keto because I used to do keto off and on, intended to be pro keto, and I bought into nonsense, and I take it personal because I fell for the BS that was debunked. As the research got deeper and deeper, I realized it was a problem. And so then I tend to be outspoken very much against that, the saturated fat end of it. And that is personal for me because I got conned by the experts and doctors in that area into believing a lot of it while the evidence was still mounting further against it. And then I realized, holy crap, this data is overwhelming. I literally might have shortened my life by doing it, actually. It still might catch up with me. Max Yoshida just got injured again. Can you cover this? There are fanboys in his comments saying stuff like, if you're not getting injured, you're not a real lifter. They need to get, wow. You're not a real lifter if you're not educated. So I'm not a real lifter. Man. I mean, really, if I get to where I can overhead press again, then people have nothing on me. It's going to be ironic if I am correct in my hypothesis that it is the supine curls that did it. It's going to be like, man, the one thing I took on in latter years that I really changed my position on and pushed might have caused all my problems. Wow. You know, that would be a major win for old school Blaha. Never tried keto. My impression was that I always as best as a medical diet intended for the most, and that is primary benefit, body comp or satiety adherence, not the food. Yeah. But here's the thing, Luke. So if we're going to talk about medical benefits, which type of keto consistently does best in all the research for medical purposes? It's not the bacon and egg version. I'll give you that hint. So which version of keto has the best control of epilepsy? That's one of the primary medical uses. PUFA. Literally the ones drinking seed oils actually have better medical outcomes medically. And I do mean that. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not using hyperbole. I am literally telling you that the research on this shows that the PUFA ones, to where they are even adding seed oils to their food to get more PUFAs, literally have better medical outcomes when medical keto is done for specific medical conditions, like when it's measured. This is a problem for their cult, because this is the doctors who support it and are using it to cure patients. And again, I'm not promoting seed oils by saying it. People will interpret that as, oh, you want people to know. I don't want you to drink seed oils. I don't think we should be cooking with a bunch of fats in general. Like, I don't support this idea. But are you going to look at medical data? Is there a huge benefit to eating brown rice over white in terms of health? I prefer the white because you digest, but the brown rice has more micronutrients. Great question. If you're just wanting the calories, ease of preparedness, ease on your GI tract, white rice is great. No, I don't think there's any issue. Keep in mind, white rice is not as empty of nutrients as people make it out to be. I think if people plugged it in chronometer, they'd be, not as bad as they think. You start adding vegetables, though, and then you fix those problems. The issue, though, with the brown rice is the difficulty in preparing it. Sometimes the GI tract distress for the person. It is richer in antioxidants. So what I would say, if you're going to go the white rice route, you probably do need to bump your vegetable intake a little bit to compensate for the fiber and antioxidant reduction. Carol says, great video about the compound lifts. Appreciate it, Carol. Thank you. All right. Appreciate it. Ooh, I'm surprised we're getting such a good sweat here. I'm going to have a shower after this one. Funny enough, indoor cardio. I don't normally sweat doing this. That's strange. Maybe it's that first cup of coffee. Yeah, white rice is easy to digest. And we still come over to, do people really have an issue with it? People are plenty fit on it in certain countries. Plenty of bodybuilders still do white rice and get shredded, you know, usually even eating large amounts of it. So, you know, it's just so cost effective too. You know, but I mean, the little vegetables go a long way. And I think here's another point people miss with the white rice conversation. It is such an easy carrier for your vegetables. It is so easy to cook vegetables into it. Do you ever eat red cargo rice? I don't even know where to get that. Like, it's not something that I can just walk over and grab off the shelf at anything remotely cost effective anywhere. That's like a specialty item. I'm not trying to go find exotic, expensive stuff like that and pay 10 times the price. Gotcha. We have them carry it locally. Yeah. I mean, I've heard of stuff like that, but I mean, so red rices, black rices, those are a specialty that if I go find them in certain health food aisles or whatever, they're going to be insanely expensive. They're going to come in little bitty tiny containers, you know, right? And they're going to be expensive. Like I'm literally going to pay 10 times the price for it, for a carbohydrate source, you know. But I think what we do have to be fair with the white rice. This gets brought up when people say, yeah, but it's not the greatest satiety, but it's like white rice is a phenomenal carrier for vegetables. Like it's a very clean carb source, easy to prepare, easy to make taste good. It's still a perfect carbohydrate source, but it's an easy carrier for vegetables. Even when we mentioned potatoes, you know how easy it is to cook potatoes into your white rice? It makes cooking potatoes even easier and faster. You can literally throw them into a rice maker or your rice pot. Just dice them or whatever, throw them in. Same thing with your Instapot. It's a carrier for your vegetables. And it's so easy to add huge amounts and make them taste good because it's cooked into the rice. So even for people who don't enjoy eating large amounts of vegetables, you know how easy it is to work in a half a kilo of broccoli, extra broccoli into your diet every day, cooked into your rice, and not notice it's there. It ends up just tasting like the rice. It's a perfect carrier for your vegetables. I think people also miss that in the conversation. You know. Right? I think Max Lucina injuries are due to his stack or more likely due to bad training or get injured. I don't even know. I think his drug stack's a factor. It's very clear he likes trim based on a lot of that and his look. Yeah, I don't know how to address some of that because how are you getting hurt with lightweight on machines? But again, maybe it's overuse from only machines combined with his drug stack. Saki says, good morning. Good morning. Do you use security? I'm sure it's all factors. But man, you have to just stand in awe. You know? Like, I mean, what do we say about that? And I can stand here. I'm standing here as a dude. I mean, I'm closer to 49 than I am 48 now at this. I'm past the halfway mark, right? I'm 48 years old, and you guys see what I lift, and I'm not getting these injuries, you know? Like, what are you kids doing? What are you kids doing? Again, I just don't get it. Right? I mean, all things considered, by normal standards compared to these kids, I'm lifting pretty heavy weights. Yeah, they're not always elite right now, but I mean, my big three are putting up respectable numbers every week. I think my dips are getting pretty good considering the range of motion. Which I'm super happy with. I feel like dips are going to be a major winner for me. Again, we come back to trying to isolate stuff too much creates overuse. Coach, the weights you are lifting at your age are very under. Thank you, Peppermint. You know, the same type of TikTok kids are hating on deadlifts, how it's bad for hypertrophy and high injury risk. The same kids are getting snapped up on machines. All right. I've never understood the logic of machines being safer. Like, it's always seemed counterintuitive to me. I've been saying that a long time. You're locked into a fixed path. How is this possibly reducing injuries? This is going to create higher overuse. You're literally locked into the identical path repetitively. And your body can't naturally move in the way that it's going to want to move because you're in a fixed position, right? So you're generally in an artificial position that for one person might be the optimal, but for the next three isn't. You're locked into an artificial position, repeatedly hitting it with progressive overload, with a high potential for overuse due to being locked in a position that may not be anatomically perfect for you. So what stress are we putting on certain tendons and things? It's the same reason a lot of isolation movements have a higher risk of overuse at the individual tendon involved. All the load is going through one tendon. It's not distributed through the whole body, and you're locked into a movement pattern that may not be, the correct natural movement pattern for you because your body isn't built to do that. Right? It's a big dynamic multi-joint model. So potentially problematic here. Just saying, guys. What do I know? Right? What do I know? But I was studying all my old lockout stuff. I'm like, man, I was totally getting that bar locked behind my head overhead. 2016, 17, 18, I have tons of just stuff looking through. Any isolation movements have very small potential of weight progression, right? What's up, Rufio? I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep this one going. I'm sweating like crazy. AC on, fan on. Do you guys hear the AC going? It's not even that hot. So I definitely, on this first cup of coffee, this is a much higher calorie burn. Rufio, I want to start double dipping more. I need the Facebook outreach higher and higher. I need more stuff in the feed. And this, technically, from a business perspective, this makes more sense for me to get on the bike in the mornings. But yeah, I definitely can tell a much higher calorie burn. I am literally sweating higher. No, I'm getting views in there. I have had several comments. No, they don't like the pounding the pavement review. They like when it's dark, I can't get any views or comments on Facebook. I can go for 2 hours. But no, I've got comments. I've had multiple comments and views in there already, even this early, because they can see my face. And it's going to stay in the feed for later, and it's all monetized. Plus, I make more money per view even on the desktop on the YouTube. So I might as well, from a business perspective, do this. But because of the bike setting is harder than my walking, I am definitely sweating more. Like, this is actually literally harder. Some people lean way back when they reach the top of the hyperextending. I mean, your shoulders have to go behind your hips for it to count in the meet. But yeah, when they really crazy hyperextend, yeah, they're setting up a risk of injury. Coach, remember your no-nonsense approach to training hard back in the juggernaut days. But as you age, do you listen to your body more and adjust? But if I listen to my body more, then some of that stuff is still really, really good. Some of that was really good, and a lot of that was still in my early 40s. And I look at that and go, what if my situation had been different? What if I hadn't been drinking? How much better would some of that have been? You know? And I think people forget that. I was still a drinker during all of that. You know? Coach is sober now. I didn't hit a 600 deadlift till I went completely sober. So, yeah, I'm going to get back to more of it. You're risky making appearances sometimes. Yep. How did you started on YouTube? It was 2012. I don't know. Whatever age I was at 2012. I'm 48 now, so you do the math. All right. I did started 13 years ago, so let's assume maybe 35-ish. Unbelievable. I don't have an answer because it wasn't consistent. Like, how often did you drink back then? I don't have a way to track that and know. Different periods it was more frequent. So it's not like, hey, we had a set amount for 17 years, we drink X amount every week. Like, I don't have numbers like that. It fluctuated. Congrats on sober, Coach. So yeah, we're over 6.5 years. We're right at 6.5 years since my last drink. You know. You ain't missing it. No, it is poison, absolutely. So Rufio, my original channel was started in 2012, so I'm gonna ballpark it 35. It would have to be 35, give or take a year on the math somewhere. Right. I agree, it is poison. We're not missing anything. That I can agree with. Do you consider home cooked meals with spices such as curry, chilies, and carne? I don't know what that is. It's a cheap man. Chili con. I don't know what that is. Like curry, just like a curry powder. I don't know. You need to look at your ingredient list and you need to tell me if it's a cheat meal. I can't tell you. So you got refined sugar added to it? That's my question. Is there refined sugar or butters or things like that added to it? Then it's a cheat meal. It's junk food. This is a very simple rule, isn't it? So your ingredient list will tell you if it's junk food. You don't need to ask me, does it have refined sugar in it? It's junk food. Does it have butter added? It's junk food. Very straightforward. There's your answer. That's a cheat meal, right? See how easy that is? So instead of giving me the names of the types of sauce, you would need to say, give me the ingredient. What junk food ingredients are we adding? You know. But the influencers, I hope you're trolling me. Unbelievable with the influencers. Because the data is overwhelming against butter. It's like one of the few things where people have lost their minds when the data is completely 100% one-sided. Okay, yeah, stop. Because people will take that seriously. Like, you know, think about it this way in terms of responsibility. If you were to get up and say in a video, I heard rat poison cures cancer, but you said it enough times that people didn't realize you were trolling, and then some teenager goes and sees your stream and eats some rat poison. Who's to blame? But I was trolling. But you told a teenager watching the stream that rat poison cures cancer. You're evil. You're guilty. That makes sense? Like you're personally morally responsible. Not saying you're going to go to jail, but morally, you're responsible for that teenager eating rat poison if you are personally. Because you shouldn't have trolled it on the internet, knowing how dumb people are. I honestly think that's how the carnivore thing started. I think some people were trolling and made the whole thing up and it took off. I legit see dudes watching motivated YouTube between sets on the gym. Lifting ain't that hard. Right. Okay. All right. Last training looks solid. Pull-ups and dips going to pay off. Yeah, absolutely. Pull-ups and dips, man. Just keep pushing them. Plus, that closer grip pull-up is much better on your shoulders. You know, for shoulder health, that really is phenomenal. So that's going to be the idea. How's going to know you have so many trolls? They got to be bots. It's the same handful of people, dude. It's not that many. It's the same guys over and over. They literally, I had one of them literally made, and I counted them. He made like 25 accounts ahead of time, like one day ahead of time, just for a stream, and would spam the same stuff, and I banned him. So I gained 25 followers in that one stream and lost all of them after I banned him. So he literally made 25 individual accounts just to spam one stream with them. One guy. And they all subscribed at the start of the stream. And then so I picked up like 25 followers. Makes sense. So yeah. Let's just move on from them. You're right, Peppermint. Let's just move on from them. It's best to do so. Not feed life into it. What's up, Ice Cream Goodness? What's up, Pulso? CO. How you doing, brother? But hopefully we get more clients moving along, more consultations. Good news there. One of my former clients, I'm doing an intake. I haven't coached him in 3 years. Doing an interview with him again today and intake and getting back in the rotation. It's always nice. I mean, really, honestly, my coaching business could thrive off of old clients if a bunch of them just came back. At what point would you consider adding jogs? I'm not sure my exact point. I will eventually do so. Unbelievable. You can't ask me for you because that's not a valid, I don't know your entire life in programming. So this is assuming for me. At some point, I don't have an exact point when I want to work them in, but I feel like eventually it would be good. I don't want to, I need to be at a slightly lighter body weight though, just for my knees, you know, with appropriate shoes and things. And if I wasn't worried about nails, glass, and dog poop, I would run barefoot, honestly. I'd free run. I'm just in the suburbs and there's dog poop and stuff, you know. And yes, I wore all those old Vibrams out. I wore every last pair of them out completely. So now I can't just go running. All right. They're all pretty much tossed. I wore holes through the bottoms of all of them. Those things don't last that long when you're a heavy lifter. You know. All right, guys. I'm thinking of winding this one down, get some other work done. Or do I need to keep going? These will do better later in the day, I feel like, later in the morning. So I think I'm going to go ahead and wind it down. It's definitely minimal views on Facebook. So let me close out Facebook. Love you guys there. And so, yeah. So we'll get a couple more of these in here later. So I will chat with you guys next time.